Welcome to the Meeple Syrup Show, where designers are discussing design. We are actually on episode 10. We've reached double digits. And we're going to be actually doing something slightly different. We're going to be chatting with publishers. I know usually we have designers only on the show. We're going to break the rules here, and we're going to actually have a couple publishers on, and we're going to pick their brains and ask them questions that designers have always wondered about. Things like what makes a good pitch, or what are they looking for? How do you get your game signed? So we're going to go around and talk about that. But before we do, we'll do our regular routine. I'm going to ask Sen and Dylan what they've been gaming, what they've been doing. Sen, what have you been up to lately?
Well, I guess the big thing that I did for my birthday was I ran a big Dread adventure. And if you don't know, Dread is awesome. It's a role-playing game where you use a Jenga tower instead of dice rolls. And so basically we killed everybody. It was awesome. Other than that, you're expected to die, really. But how you die, that's the glory of it all. Other than that, I've been playing a lot of Qubits. Qubits is a game by Mindware. The boys are really, really into visual spatial things, and developmentally that's really what they should be doing anyways. So they're doing visual spatial rotation, and Qubits is a game where you have 16 cubes, and they have different patterns on each side, and you have to reproduce what a card shows you, and it's sort of a race to do that. And so they really like that. And then I've been playing Zoom It with them, which is a game by Jumbo. And it's kind of like Picturica, except it has this little timer thing, and it is basically look for things that are hidden within other pictures. That's what I've been doing lately. How about you guys? Dylan?
That's amazing. You named all games I don't know, almost.
To be honest, on my side, I've just been playing a lot of protos. I hung out with the other Daryl Chow, and we were playing a bunch of his protos, and we were looking for a bunch of games inspired by food. So we've got a whole bunch of small games that we love it totally, like a bunch of Chinese food and so like ramen and dim sum and all this kind of fun stuff.
I wanted to do a dim sum the game. Dim sum the game would be awesome.
Dim sum the game, come on! We're going like Asian food crazy for the.
This is awesome. I'm buying.
You should.
I'm buying that.
So yeah, a bunch of food themed micro games, and we're talking to our network over in Asia to see what we can do with them. So that's what we've been playing. Daryl, what about you?
So I played a lot of Dragonflame. The end of last week and over the weekend, and I wrote a review. That's an upcoming. Well, actually, it's on Kickstarter now for Minion Games, but it's a first-time designer, Matt Loomis, and I thought it was a hit. I loved it, so highly recommend that. I finally got to play Samurai Spirit just by myself, but I thought it was a really fun, interesting take on a co-op. And then obviously I've been promoting my own game and playing it around. So actually, I played the Walled City with 2 new groups this weekend, so that was really fun.
So Daryl, when does the Walled City officially come out? I know the pre-order stuff is on the way, right?
Well, I love like we set this up like we're professionals, but no, I just saw a tweet like 2 hours ago that my local game store just got it in and it's on the shelves. So.
That's the only reason why I knew.
Yeah, I'm excited. I will be there tomorrow taking a picture of my game finally on a game shelf. I'm very excited.
Nice.
So talking on that note of games on shelves, I mean, often one of the ways that happens is via publishers. Sometimes people self-publish, but one way or another, it's got to be produced and distributed and all that kind of stuff. So why don't we welcome on our guests for tonight's show? We have 2 wonderful guests that were willing to put up with our questions. We have Larry Rosna with Mayfair Games and Patrick Nickel with Crash Games. Thank you for being on the show, guys.
Thanks for having us.
You're welcome.
Excellent. And with that, why don't we start off with I'm going to send a question to Larry to get the ball rolling. Larry, what's a good way for someone who has a game to get the game shown to someone like you or to one of your employees? How does someone get their game in front of you?
you really, really got to make an appointment. Uh-oh. Am I dead again? Am I here?
Oh,
No,
you're
we
here.
can hear you.
Okay.
We can
I
hear
wasn't
you.
sure. Okay, never mind. I didn't see my picture come up, though. That's not my fault. So
Nope.
anyway, I mean, rule number one, make an appointment. Okay? You know, context for rule number one. Don't walk up to somebody in the middle of Gen Con and say, hey, you got to look at my game right now.
Absolutely.
You know, it's almost more a matter of what you don't want to do, as opposed to what you know, if you don't do this, then what's left is what you should do.
Nice.
Something like that anyway, okay? I mean, make an appointment. Try and identify the guy that you got to go see and when he's going to be available, all right? You know, don't dress in a suit, but don't show up in tattered shorts and a ripped T-shirt with somebody else's company's name on it or something, you know. Present yourself in some manner and don't expect them to play the game. All right, the best spiel I ever got was from an author by the name of Frederick Moyerson. He sat down with a notebook in one hand and opened it up and went through 10 products in 30 minutes. Okay, all we want when we're first looking is just to take 10 products in 30 minutes. Okay, but we just want to taste. Okay, is it enough to pique our interest? Is it enough to get us to ask you some questions or whatever? Okay, we don't want you to read the rules to us. We don't want you to. We don't want to see a prototype. You know, we just want to. What's the concept here? You know, show me one little piece of cute art or something. You know, what's your basic concept? Then we can go talk later. You know, that's how somebody would say something to me or pitch to me or something. But I mean, if they make an appointment with Alex, they can get 15 minutes on one game.
Right.
I'll shut up now for a little bit.
Well, that's good. You're starting this.
I can talk all night. Okay, you know.
It's true. I've heard him do it before.
You've heard
good
this
way,
before
good
about
way.
me.
That's what we want. That's what we want.
Actually, I was hoping a designer would be here because I'd actually like to ask him what his expectations would be.
Well, all three hosts are designers, but that's a good question. Maybe we'll even use that as an excuse for a social media plug. Anyone who has questions or thoughts or answers on that question, you can send them to @MeepleSyrup, and we'll try to mention you on the show. So, but I know, Dylan, you have a question actually for Patrick.
Yeah, I wanted to go to Patrick and talk about, building your line as a publisher. A lot of designers say, I'm thinking of this publisher for this game because it would really fit in their line. Are you thinking about that as a publisher? Are you thinking about gaps in your line, and what are they?
One of the things that I decided early on as a publisher is that I didn't want to pigeonhole myself into a specific theme, a specific type of game, and it's strange because I see a lot of the more established publishers that have been around for years and years, longer than I have, that have a specific set of games. But my criteria is the game fun and is it approachable? I mean, I always have things like I'd like to do a dice game, and I have a couple of those that were submitted to me by designers that are in my publication schedule. And so every once in a while I'm just like, oh, okay, I feel like I've done a lot of card games. I'd like to try to pick up a dice game. But I never want to be a company that's looking for a specific game. I want games that are fun and games that are approachable and games that I can sell. And I'll worry about, how it fits into my line. I want people to never really know what's coming, but to know that it's going to be made exceptionally high quality and that it's going to be a lot of fun. And that just, leaves a lot to the imagination, and the possibilities are really endless versus being, steered towards a fantasy genre, for example, or a company that just makes space games. I think that's really limiting, and it starts to shut you off from the masses.
Okay, excellent. I wanted to ask Larry, so when Jay and I do our pitches to people, we have usually a bunch of sell sheets, or depending on where we are at the gathering, we might set up a whole table with 8 to 10 products. Have you had people pitch to you, Larry, with just sell sheets, kind of like the notebook idea, except with a little more information? And do you value sell sheets at all?
Well, sell sheets are like, that's a step that I'm not really expecting a designer to go through.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I've seen everything from, crayon scratching on a piece of paper to a fully produced game. Okay, and everything in between. And I'm sure Patrick's seen the same thing. Okay. A sell sheet maybe gives me enough information if it's got the synopsis and all that other kind of stuff, but a sell sheet indicates that you're already trying to give us some kind of price range or this or that or whatever. Okay, a sell sheet, a synopsis, to me, in a design stage, is pretty much the same thing. I think, or I would think so. Okay, again, the gathering is a whole different situation, or the proto spiel events are a whole different situations anyway. Okay,
right.
But the publisher, I mean, a sell sheet or a promo sheet or a synopsis sheet, particularly if you got more than one product you want to pimp to me. And again, it depends on who you're talking to. All right, I don't particularly look at anything anymore. Okay, for the most part. Okay, it's not because I'm too high and mighty. I'm just not the right guy.
Right.
I'm seriously not the right guy. If it's not a train game, I'm not the guy to look at it. Okay.
Awesome.
I'll admit it freely, okay? I mean, that's what the reality of the situation is, okay?
So you've heard it here, folks. Design train games, show them to Larry.
There you go.
No, bring me your train games. I'm doing pretty good.
Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. There's some train competition over here. So, actually, I got a question for Patrick.
No, but hang on. By the way, I got a comment about Patrick. All that stuff you said about, you don't want to put yourself in a box and everything, and all those little things that you said, you just described your line to me. Okay.
Oh.
That is your line. Okay. You just described it by what you said.
Sure. My line is fun and approachability.
Right. If I come up to you with some, 45-page role-playing death scenario someplace, you're probably not going to do it.
No, right? No role playing. I don't.
It wouldn't fit in your line, would it?
I was totally going to pitch you on that.
Yeah, I was definitely going to pitch Patrick on my role playing game. But on
I
that
hear
note,
my wife calling me. I gotta go.
So, Patrick, a question. I mean, I actually got to meet you briefly at Gen Con. What are some of the best places or spaces that you've discovered some of the games you've done? Could you tell us a little bit about where you find games, where you make appointments with people? How do people show you games?
Sure. Well, to piggyback on what Larry said, an appointment is best. As a publisher, shows are our time to interact with customers and put our products out there and sell our products, and so there's 1,000,001, things that go into that and all the logistics behind it. Not to mention it's very, very physically draining and emotionally draining. So it gets to be really difficult if somebody just walks up blindly, and it's unfortunate because then they've kind of put you in a rough spot. I mean, you can always respond politely. But then it kind of puts them in the spot of having to be a jerk, of saying, look, I really can't look at this right now. So some shows I attend exclusively for meetings. I've never had a booth at Gen Con. Nope. This next year I'm going to attempt to have it for the first time. It's actually cheaper to run a booth at Essen than it is at Gen Con.
Wow.
And they've had crazy high demand for it. And up until now, I haven't really had a big enough catalog to warrant a show like that. So I find games in the weirdest places. Like some of the best games that I have signed have come through very non-traditional channels and just circumstance. So wherever I can see it, people are always able to make appointments. If designers reach out to me via email. Not to put Sen on the spot, but Sen has, to give me a quick pitch on a game and ask if I'm interested. That's always appreciated as well, because then I can just shoot back and go, I'm really full right now, or yeah, feel free to send it over to me. The big thing that I would say to people is be prepared. You have your moment, so have your game ready. I may or may not be able to play it, but be prepared and be flexible, but mostly know who you're meeting with, and have some selling points. I think it was, and I always say his last name wrong, Eric Struess, who did Fieldy, and I can't remember off the top of my head what else he has done, but I know he's done some stuff with Asmati. He makes these little sheets that have like punch points for his game, and it's not really a sell sheet, but it's kind of like highlights and stuff. That's always appreciated because it's a takeaway that I can throw in my folder and like, oh yeah, I remember this, and then I can write my notes about the game on it. So little aids like that are greatly appreciated for that. To have your name, your phone number, your email. That's really, really great too. But I guess I just, I feel like I'm rambling a bit, but I'll take games and find games wherever and whenever.
That's great. No, actually, I have a quick follow-up question to that then, because sometimes people either feel like you have a contract sitting in your pocket ready to just hand out, or some people might think that that it takes years and years to decide. What is realistic expectations for people from showing you the game to what could it, how long could it take, or how quick could it be?
I always actually, and this will probably make Larry chuckle a bit, but I always have blank contracts on hand if I'm going to be somewhere at a show, because I'm the scrappy little independent publisher, right? If I see a game and I like it, I don't want the game to leave the table. I always am very honest with designers and let them know, like, you can ask me anything. Here's what I have to offer you. There was a game at Gencon. I think it was the most aggressive that I've ever been, but Matt Dunstan, the designer of Relic Runners, showed me a game, and I didn't want him to get up and leave the table. He was considering, showing it to other publishers. I fell in love with it, and I'm like, look, this is awkward because I don't want you to leave the table. I told him I don't want you to feel forced by any stretch of the imagination, and I don't want you to, feel like if you leave that I won't ever work with you, because that's a horrible ultimatum and not the way that I do business. But I'm like, if it's at all possible to seal this deal, let's do it. And it took a lot of selling on my part, but I signed the game. So, I mean, I guess the expectations are, just be prepared for anything, because maybe I have a blank contract on me, maybe I don't. I don't care for the competition side of this. Like, if I see a game, I want it, right? Yeah. If I see a game that I like, I want it, and I don't want to lose it, to another publisher. That's probably one of the cruddiest parts of this business. Like, oh, I love that game, and I have such great plans for it, but then another publisher, snatches it up, and I'm happy for the designer, and it's a good thing that their game's going to get made regardless. But I'm like, oh, it could have been me.
Absolutely. Well, I asked that question to you because I actually got to play that awesome game. I'm not going to say anything about it, but I got to play that at Gen Con. I'm super excited about it. I don't know what's allowed to be said about it. So.
Yeah, I wasn't letting that one up from the table. Last year I had lost out on a couple games, which is just the nature of the industry. And so now if I see something, and I get better at knowing what I love, right? I get better each time of knowing what a good game is and what just an okay game is, or what a bad game is. The hard one, you got to be careful. It's not the bad games that you need to be worried about seeing. It's the okay games that could be good, and then you get back home and you're like, what the heck did I do? And that doesn't mean that it's bad on the designer. That just means that it's very distracting at a show. And so I'm starting to feel like maybe I shouldn't sign at shows, because your attention is like the bajillion people that are walking around, and all of a sudden, Will Wheaton walks by, and then somebody in cosplay that you want to stare at, and that doesn't sound pervy at all. But
not at all.
No. The cosplay quality these days is phenomenal. I can't believe some of these people.
I don't know how to transition from cosplay, so I'm just going to say.
I don't either. I think I just showed up at this point.
That's awesome. I'm gonna pass it to Dylan. I know Dylan's got a question for Larry.
I'm just still reeling about not being able to pitch my death RPG here, but no. I wanted to. So Larry, I'm going to ask you an unfair question because it can be answered in any number of ways. But I want to know about that point in a pitch where your ears perk up. Where, like, say, even in the last 3 pitches that you've had, like, where what was the designer talking about that just made you listen a little bit closer?
Well, a lot of it, the controlled enthusiasm is important. Okay, you expect them to be enthusiastic, but and you know that they're showing you their child, the best thing since sliced bread and everything else. But it's that one little twist, that one little special mechanic. We're going to do this, we're going to do that, but instead of doing this normal thing, we're going to do something else. I mean, it's just whatever hook is going on, whatever strikes your fancy, really. I mean, it's not much different than what Patrick just said, frankly. Okay, you get into something that you just, hey, I like this game. Okay, you might be blowing me away right now, mopping up the floor, making me a grease spot, but I'm liking this game, right? And a lot of times I like a game just because I'm having a great time playing it, and I'm losing. Mm-hmm. Okay, I mean, if you have a great time playing a game while you're losing, then you've got a reasonable product that you're looking at that point.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, that's what I'm looking at. And again, I love to just double up on Patrick here. Unfortunately or fortunately, I guess we're lucky. We can talk to a publisher and say, look, give us a couple of weeks and don't show it to anybody else, and they won't. Okay. But if you're in the middle of a game pitching contest, like Gencon is on some level, people do look at them, or Proto Spiel, or this, or the speed dating that Matthew does, or whatever. You really can't say something like that. But if you're in a controlled environment with appointments and such, then you can say, okay, look, and pretty much people know that's our policy. If we're going to take your game from you, or take your prototype, or say make us a prototype or whatever, we're going to need a couple of weeks. And we're going to politely ask you not to show it to anybody else, and then you have to decide if you want to take a chance of saying, well, no, and if you show it to everybody else and they're not interested, if I'm going to still be interested, or if you just want to give me the 2 weeks.
Right.
But on the same token, what you did, Patrick, most of the big shows, I've got our legal counsel with us, and he's got a copy of the contract on his computer. I can print one up for you in 5 minutes or less. So, I mean, the best pitch I ever got, a loading dock at Gencon 10 years ago from Bill Chase on Theophilus.
That's
awesome.
He
had exactly the length of one cigarette to make his pitch. He did it.
Nice. That's old school right there, baby.
That is, chase me, find me, okay? I can't do that anymore because people accuse me of holding court if I stand still too long. But I'm really not the guy to have, once again, I'm not the guy, no matter who's listening or who's going to see this later, I am not the guy to show your game to.
Right. So I'm looking at my phone right now. I've just got a message that we've just sent a note to a publisher. Jay, my partner, has sent a note to a publisher saying something to the effect of, you've had the game for a while, we're wondering what you're going to do with it. They've had it for a fair amount of time. So, Patrick, I know you have a very short turnaround time, but what's your points on exclusivity in terms of, pre-contractual obligations of the designer and the publisher?
Sure. Well, I have a couple different answers for that. I have been in the past quick with turnaround time, and as I've grown as a company, I need to start to stretch that out because it's simply becoming. My workload has substantially increased, and so I was before offering about a 2-week turnaround, and now I'm about to, I think, transition to about a month or two. So I'm going to ask something, special of a designer, but I'm going to give them something in return at the same time. So kind of a mutual, symbiotic benefit there. So I am going to ask that while I'm evaluating a game by a designer, that I have, short-term, exclusivity on it. I simply will not work with the designer if they're going to take up my time and pitch me a game, and then I'm going to put it through my normal, phases of playtesting and put it in front of my development team, and only to have them come back and go, oh, well, I signed it with another company. That's flat out a waste of my time, and that's a guaranteed way for a designer to burn their bridge with me, and I don't care how good their game is in the future. I'll just let them know, please don't pitch to me, please go somewhere else. Thankfully, I haven't had to encounter that situation because I always try to handle it as tactfully and respectfully with the designer as possible to let them know, look, I'm a one-man company. I don't have time to stop everything that I'm doing and evaluate a game if I don't have an honest shot, at publishing it. But in turn for that, I promise to turn around as quick as I can. And I know I've really struggled with that in the last couple months, but I simply have been, communicated to the designers, look, I just can't get to it as quick, so here's my turnaround time. And at the end of that time, if you want to go ahead and shop it somewhere else, that's completely okay. I don't, like I mentioned previously, I don't care for the competition aspect, but I really feel that, there doesn't need to be a competition. We're in a renaissance period of gaming, and there's a lot of really talented designers out there, and there's a lot of really talented games. And even if you're a company like Mayfair with a lot of resources, or a small company like me with limited resources, nobody has enough time in the year to publish all the games. So, I want to make sure that people know that while there is that competition, there's a ton of games out there that deserve to see, the light of day. So it's all just about finding the timing and making sure. I think communication is key. I don't ever want to be a publisher that receives a game and just sits on it and sits on it and sits on it and costs that designer a potential opportunity because maybe company Y was looking for a game like that and would have taken it to market quicker.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, appreciate
So
that.
I try to really keep the designer in mind just as much as I keep myself in mind. It's because I'm 50% Canadian that I'm extra polite in that regard.
I think so too.
We're very sorry.
Sorry.
So,
Sorry,
not
sorry, but I'm sorry.
We're always sorry. On that note, I got a couple questions on social media. I'm going to send the first one to Larry. I have one here from Paul Saxberg, and he's asking the question. He runs a prototype pavilion at an event called FallCon in Calgary, and he's wondering what could he do to make it more attractive destination for publishers who might be picking up new designs. So do you have any tips on cons and conventions, especially as they're bubbling up, these unpubs and protospiels? How can they be attractive to you publishers on being there? Why, what can they do to make sure that it's worth your while to show up?
Who do they want to show up?
Well, probably Alex, maybe not you.
Well,
Bob and Angus.
Bob and Angus. Yeah, I could buy, that's too expensive. I go broke feeding them hay all the time. The lettuce bill is out of this world. But no, in all honesty, it's a matter of, like Patrick just said, there is so much content out there now, okay, that, you get an established game company going, you start publishing some games, and you're really not in a position where you have to go look for content.
Right.
Okay. And I got people knocking my door down. Okay, but that's because we're Mayfair. Okay. But even before, the perception was we were bigger than we were back when we were actually smaller. And it was still the same thing. We didn't have to go looking for content. People walked up to us, and then, of course, the other thing we do on our level is we actually sit down and talk to the other game companies in other countries and take a look at stuff that they're about to publish that they've already done all the work for and development for. And then in some cases, we just go out and buy a company.
Right.
That was a joke. You're supposed to laugh. No, but that's why we bought. That's one of the reasons why we bought Lookout.
Yeah.
In all honesty, okay, we liked what they were doing. There was an opportunity there. He made us an offer that I couldn't refuse, and so we bought. We bought the controlling.
You looking to buy companies, Larry?
And that's where this comes from, right, Larry?
And that's where that comes from. That should be on a boat here very soon.
Excellent.
Brilliant.
And the other thing is because and that's the other thing now you take a look about actively looking for things. Okay, one of the reasons we purchased Lookout is that gave me primary access to Uwe Rosenberg.
Right.
That's a big grab.
That's not a bad decision at all.
And that's exactly what I was thinking when we were making the deal and talking about it. I get first crack at Uwe Rosenberg designs. Okay, works for me.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? Say no?
No.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I kind of want to, after talking about all this content that you can obviously just tap right into it, it really leads well into the question that I had to go to Patrick. I want to know what the attrition rate is. You've got biceps the size of telephone poles from taking home all of your protos. You test the protos out. How many of those protos after analysis end up not working out?
The vast majority of them, and that's even from established, previously published designers, and that was what was surprising the most to me. Nobody seems to be immune to putting a game that's not quite ready, or putting a game that's not quite working. And I can't imagine the level of experience and tenure someone like Larry has. I know that every game that I do, I get a little bit more under my belt, and I like to think that every game I do, I get a little bit better at looking at stuff, because it's a unique skill set. Because you're emotionally, think of it from this perspective. You're at a show, so you're outside of your home area, so you're excited to be somewhere different and new. You're pumped up. Cons are like a drug for me now. If I'm not at a show for a while, I start to get itchy and scratchy. So you're having a good time, and so that puts you in a different mindset. So you got to really be careful, because then you kind of have people know what beer goggles are, but you can kind of have con goggles too. You're having a great time, you're looking at something, you're excited about an aspect of it, and it can kind of put things out of proportion. So it's very few that make it through, right? Because the amount of work that a game has to go through, particularly, for me as an indie publisher, it is a tremendous amount of work. And so I'm only willing to bet on the ones that I am absolutely in love with, that I think are fantastic. And there are not a lot of games that meet that criteria. So even somebody that's maybe been published 2, 3, 4, 5 times, that doesn't mean the proto that they just put in my hands is going to be published by me. And just because I pass on it doesn't mean that somebody else isn't going to pick it up. I might not like it for a very specific reason, and another publisher might like it for that reason. So
because it's the 45-page Death RPG.
Yeah, well, I mean,
now I want to publish that out of spite.
Once you give me an opportunity to tell you about this Death RPG,
it's all set up.
I will wear cosplay for you.
No.
I want to see a Borat cosplay. I'm not talking,
There are things.
I'm going to put my fist down and request right of hot pursuit on that question, because I'd like to know kind of your top 3 reasons why games don't pass muster. Like, are they not developed enough?
Top reason, not fun. I sat down and played it, and it felt like work. Second reason, crazy component heavy. Just like that adds another layer of complication to a game when I'm going to need to sell it at a $50 or $60 price point in order to make it viable. And the third reason is it just was broken and it's not working. Those I think are the top 3, but really just it's got to be fun, Sometimes I come across a lot of games that have unnecessary layers of complications, and it's like, well, let's streamline this.
Excellent. So speaking of streamlining, Larry, I was wondering what a publisher like Mayfair can offer to a designer in terms of development of the product that they pitched you. So the product they pitch you isn't going to be the product that you end up publishing 95% of the time. That's not the way it works. What does Mayfair offer in terms of development?
Well, over 150 years of game industry experience with only half of our staff. We've got some of our senior staff are the heavyweights of the publishing industry from the Iron Crown Company,
right?
Who had a number of reasonably good games. And frankly, I keep on saying it, but I can't say it enough. We got Alex Yeager, okay. And, I wouldn't trade him for 2 first-round draft choices. There are, and the other thing is that we freely tell authors you know, okay, this just isn't going to work for us. But maybe you should try and change this or tweak this here a little bit, and you know, either bring it back to us or take it somewhere else. But I mean, we don't just say no, we don't want this and not give them a reason why.
Excellent.
Okay? We can't be like that. Okay. You know, and the difference is because we have the team that we have that looks over these things, the initial team that looks over these things, out of 10 games that Alex decides pass muster over a period of time, usually somewhere between 7 or 8 actually get published. Okay, once in a while, you know, that doesn't mean they have the same skin as they came when they have in, as they had when they came in. In fact, we just finally caught up with our backlog about a year or so ago, where we reskinned a couple of games that at the time the skin was good, but now it had to change. Okay. You know, we had too much in our backlog at some point, so we just gave a bunch of them back, not because they weren't any good, but I think we thought their time had passed. Okay. And so, I mean, the industry is fickle as it is. You know, deck building was a big whoop-de-doo for quite a while, and on some level it still is, but at some point everyone just comes back to a board game again. You know? And but no, it's really about the people that we have, you know, that we've got, and of course the machine that we have in distribution and whatnot and everything else, you know.
Right.
You know, it's guaranteed that our distributors will buy some of every release we publish. There's
and you guys also have a manufacturing arm, right?
Well, we make the games in the factory, yes. I mean, I got 48,000 square feet.
Right.
And in fact, I just had the guys from Ludofact in Germany over at my place today, taking a look at what we're doing. I got 15 people on an assembly line with automated machinery kicking out 5,000 games a day.
Wow.
Yeah, I saw the video. That was pretty cool.
Wow. Yeah, that's real, and that happens every single day. And the past couple of weeks, I've had to do a half a shift on Saturday. But no, you know, you laugh about that.
No, that's awesome.
Last year at this time, from Labor Day till Thanksgiving, I was working my people 58 hours a week, and they still were not keeping up.
Crazy.
Christmas shopping. That's great. That's a good problem.
Yeah.
So I'm going to actually send I got a few more audience questions. I got one from Suzanne. I'm going to send, I have 2 questions. I'm going to send the first one to Patrick. Feel free not to mention names. Well, what's the worst pitch you've ever heard?
The worst pitch.
You can make it generic. I know what you're going to say already. Go ahead.
This 45-page RPG this guy was trying to pitch me.
All right, I'm out.
Flips the table.
Flip it. Oh, this is for my friends Bo and Paul. Make the table, fold the table, flip the table. So, gosh, I don't know. I've had, I don't like to throw anybody under the bus.
You can speak in code.
Yeah, you have to.
Before. I struggled with it before. I have no trouble saying what the bad pitch was. I'm trying to remember. You should have gave me some time to think about it in the chat thread. You're horrible host.
We are.
Just kidding.
Yeah, no warning on the chat thread. It's like you're next. Okay. No warning what the question's going to be.
Okay. I know what the worst pitch is. I got a game in the mail, unsolicited. It had no contact information in it whatsoever.
Oh wow.
It was wrapped up in like a very used and tattered accordion file. It had no rules, and it was all just like cut out pieces of paper. And I'm like, I felt bad for them. I'm like, you're obviously trying, but you missed some big parts of this. And that is the
Balthazar told me to send this to you.
Yeah, it instantly went in the garbage. I didn't have rules.
Yeah.
I had no way to say, hey, send a quick email. You sent me this. What is it? I had no way to contact them. So I'm like, look, I'm not letting this sit on my desk. It went right in the trash. I'll be honest. I took the wood pieces out of it first.
Oh yeah.
Hey,
That's what I do that with. I do that with student submissions as well. If they don't put their name on it, it's really hard for me to mark your papers. So
Yes.
there you go.
I have another question from 425 Suzanne on Twitter, and I'm going to send this one to Larry. But what's maybe a game that you passed on, or that you know that you guys looked at and you just missed it? You didn't see, maybe the game wasn't finished yet, or it was a diamond in the rough, and you passed on it, and then down the road went, I wish we signed that one.
I don't know that we've done it, that we've lost it in that manner, that we've actually passed on a game that ultimately kicked. Okay. We've lost a few licenses along the way and things of that nature. We've passed on republishing of games that were allegedly successful, but then when they were republished, they were a bomb. Okay, Shark comes to mind. But I don't recall any game that we might have passed on that ultimately went large. I'm sure there's games that we've passed on that have been printed.
Sure.
But only once, if you know what I mean.
All right. And Dylan's bugging us that he wants to hear what's the worst pitch that you've ever heard. So we got to get it.
Well, I haven't pitched him on my Death RPG yet.
Well, no, I just have this picture of this generic guy who walks up to you with a manufactured game that some custom house, some vanity press place did for him, charged him a fortune, didn't give him any information. It's broken, it's all wrong, there's no UPC, and he won't leave you alone. And he just won't leave you alone.
You've all learned a lesson.
You've
all learned a lesson here. Right.
I've got 3,000 in my garage. You've got to take the game. I go to talk to me. I said, when did you publish the game? 6 months ago. You should have talked to me 8 months ago. I mean, it's just the generic guy that comes up to you, whether he's got it published or not. He's got all this stuff, and he just doesn't want to believe that you don't think the game is as good as his grandmother thinks it is.
Right.
Okay? I mean, it just gets to that. And they they don't take the concept of not today, guy, or maybe you need to do this. No, it's done. I'm not going to change anything. Well, then we're done. No, but you got to take the game. The people that just won't go away. And there's more than one of them out there.
Yeah, 100%.
I don't think they've been published yet, but there's more than one of them out there.
Those generic guys, they're everywhere. Patrick, I wanted to ask you a question because I know it's something that has happened because you rely quite a bit on Kickstarter, and you're very transparent in your practices on Kickstarter. And so, as a backer, I back quite a few games and quite a few of yours actually. I do respect that. And I know that you ran into some flack a little just like a couple months ago actually when you wrote a letter to the backers saying that in order to actually be at Gencon or to be at one of the conventions, it only made sense that you would sell product there, and that the product was actually slated to come out like the week after or something ridiculously close. And how does that feel to you as a publisher when you know that your business relies on you selling things, and then people who backed your product kind of get all up in arms about when things are sold because you might have promised something that your business model no longer allows you to maintain that promise?
Sure. So it's an awkward situation. Larry and I live in different worlds, and it's nice that not to have to rely on crowdfunding to make games. The plain answer is I don't have a company without crowdfunding, right?
Right.
Just have some passions and some dreams and some talents. So I think the big thing is I absolutely need to own the fact that I created an expectation for my customers. I created a promise and I broke it. So I need to be held accountable for that. And I am perfectly okay with being held, accountable for that. The difficulty is that I am a business, and if I'm going to continue to grow, with my last 3 projects, Patriot Yardmaster and Yardmaster Express, those were supposed to arrive in plenty of time for me to get them out to my backers and for me to be able to get them to Gen Con. That was all supposed to happen, within time. I met some some things came up that were outside of my control that put a big delay on those projects. But unfortunately, I had already paid for all of the majority of the expenses to have a booth at Essen. And so the majority of people got it. There was a very few but very vocal minority that got really upset over it. And I'm always happy to hear them and create an environment that makes their feedback, even though it's critical, okay to share. I don't ever want to turn a customer away because they're upset. In fact, I think it's how you deal with the upset vocal customers that defines you as a business, not the people that love you, but the people that don't like you. And so the reality was, in order for me to continue to exist, I needed to do that. I had one really vocal person that was upset that said I should have taken a $35,000 hit and airshipped all the products to Kickstarter backers if I wanted to sell at Essen. And clearly he doesn't live here on a thing called planet Earth.
Right.
And so unfortunately, though, I still have to deal with that person and accommodate them as much as I can and say, look, I'm sorry you feel this way, but these are the realities of the situation. Moving forward, because of the fluctuations in this industry, that's not a promise that I'm ever going to make again. It was made early on to kind of try to be one more reason why you should back my stuff,
right?
On Kickstarter. And I don't ever want to develop hubris, but I think people have seen the physical quality and the gameplay quality of what I put out. So I think I should rely on that more heavily than saying, hey, you'll have it a month before anybody else, because most people don't care. They got a stack of games that they're not playing already, and mine's just going to go on top of it.
Yeah. So one quick question to follow that, Patrick, and again, just because you rely so heavily on Kickstarter, what are your thoughts on kind of that current crop of very entitled backer who thinks that they should be able to make decisions, design decisions, or artistic direction decisions on the games that you're going to publish? How do you deal with that?
Sure. Well, that's part of that. That is such a contrasting reason. Like, that's what makes Kickstarter great, because the person gets to join in on that process and have the potential to help and shape and create the games. And it also is what makes it really difficult, because if 10 people have an idea, maybe one of them is good. So you have to gently let down 9 people and tell them, look, I hear your feedback on this, but it's not going to happen. The important thing that I always want my backers and customers to know is that I'm going to hear you regardless. Everybody gets to share their opinion and share their voice, and that is, again, part of the magic and part of the frustrating part of Kickstarter. I definitely have noticed an increased sense of entitlement, and I think that's something that us as publishers are collectively guilty of. There were a lot of people early on in Kickstarter, I won't mention the projects, that kind of gave away the farm. There's a lot of people that allow a lot more or implement a lot more of their backer feedback, and that just may be because they have super, great backers, and if the feedback is great, put it in the game. But I think people will take one specific project and they'll apply that to every project, and like, oh, well, publisher X took my feedback, so you should too, or publisher Y gave me this free bag and the free tin and the free this and the free that. What are you going to give me? If that was a child of mine, I'd be like, go to your room. You're not going to get anything because you clearly have gotten some inflated expectations. People need to understand that you get to be a part of the process. You get to help bring a game to publication, and that's a badge that you should wear, and you get a physical reward for that as well. But like one backer said, this was elaborate. They created a fake email called Honest Joe or Joe Honest at hotmail.com, and they create this whole email account, and they sent me an email that said, oh, please take lots of pictures at Essen. I would like to see you selling the games that I paid for. And I was like, wow. First of all, you're a jerk. Yeah. Because that is such a crappy way to approach me. And second of all, you paid for a part of those games. I always print extra, and I do that out of the money that Crash Games generates in retail sales so that I can hopefully make more money by putting more copies into retail, because Kickstarter backers take a big chunk of that. And so I have noticed an influx in entitlement, and I really hope that people can try to do whatever process it is at home to ground themselves in reality, because I feel like it's getting a little out of control.
Yep.
I want to kind of change things up a little bit when we go to Larry with this question, because this is something of it's like a bête noire. This is something that's bugged me for years and years and years, because newbie designers always ask this question. And I wanted a definitive answer from a real live publisher to put this thing to bed. Everyone asks, should I copyright my game?
All right, let's you really want to open up that can of worms, huh?
It's a horrible can of worms, but it has to be done. The last nail has got to be put in this coffin.
All right, let's start off with what you can copyright and what you can't copyright.
Perfect.
Okay? You can copyright a set of rules. Okay, you cannot copyright a mechanic. All right. So if you want to do a simple copyright to protect yourself from a publisher ripping you off, by all means do so. Don't spend any money on it. Okay, the publisher will copyright it. Okay, and since you got a license with that publisher, that's going to protect you and protect your work, and then you're going to get a check at some point in time, one would think. Okay, you can also copyright the artwork. Most publishers aren't going to use that artwork anyway, so don't bother spending money on artwork to copyright. Don't bother to spend money on artwork and then copyright it, because the publisher's probably not going to use it. Okay, so I mean, you know, it's a paranoid thing. Okay, there are unscrupulous people out there who, if you show them your game, will sit there and refuse it and then publish it 6 months later with a little tweak. All right, the copyright might protect you there, it might not. But keep in mind, to enforce the copyright, you need a lawyer. To need a lawyer, you need money. Most game designers don't have money.
It's true.
Patrick doesn't have money. Okay, and he's a game publisher and half Canadian. Okay.
That explains it.
So, but
the
realistic thing is that there is no real reason to copyright it that I could think of. Okay, most of the guys that come to us, even the established authors, and we're talking Uwe Rosenberg, we're talking Martin Wallace, we're talking Klaus Teuber for that matter, none of them copyright their own work. None of them. Now, after the relationship puts together, if the designer gets around to forming his own company and this and that, or so on, so like on the back of our boxes, copyright, all rights reserved, Mayfair Games and Catan USA,
right,
or Catan GmbH. Okay, it's a dual copyright. We do all the work, and it's basically we've published it. It's real. It's copyrighted in a simple manner, but then we've got trademarks and logos and all that other crap to go with it. But for an author himself to go through anything beyond some kind of simple copyright of mailing yourself your rule book and not opening the letter or something like that, I don't see any real reason for it. You know, just the unscrupulous companies don't last very long. Okay, but there's always one or two of them out there. But I wouldn't bother. We're not going to rip.
You have done a great public service today, sir. I'd like to thank you for that.
Or cause more questions, whichever.
We're okay with that too, because maybe then people will send more questions and comments. But I'm going to do another follow-up on one of
Patrick. I assume that he's publishing overseas.
My publishing, I license a lot of my stuff to other companies that have their stuff together way more than I do.
No. I'm talking about the games that you physically make. You're making them overseas.
You manufacture overseas.
I publish my games. I proudly publish my games with Panda Manufacturing in China.
Okay. We got this wonderful country here that's got a lot of people that make stuff, and since you're doing Kickstarter, okay. You should be able to build the price of domestic manufacturing into it, and I trust you. If you do that, it won't be late on the next container because there ain't going to be no container.
We're going to go there. We can open that can of worms.
Yeah, let's do it.
I intentionally don't publish my stuff in the U.S. because it's 400% of the price and 1/4 of the quality.
So you're saying that my Catan games that are 99% made in this country can be better made in China with better quality. Don't even go there.
Do you want my honest answer to that?
Yeah.
I don't like the new Catan. I don't like the component quality. I prefer my first edition from Germany.
Okay, your first edition, the one that was made in Germany.
Yeah.
Like the German.
I don't like that composite tile.
We don't do the composite tile anymore.
Did that change?
18 months ago.
Okay, I haven't seen the new one because I have my first edition and then I have one that I bought about 4 years ago because I wanted to stop playing with my first edition.
We went to chipboard and wrap. We agreed the composite wasn't working anyway, and we wanted to be more like the Germans, but we stayed with wood and they went with plastic.
But anybody that I encounter that gives me grief about publishing overseas, I let them know because I publish overseas, I create a ton of jobs here in the U.S. from graphic designers, from artists, from companies that I have make accessories and marketing materials. The simple fact of the matter is I can't afford to do business over here, and nor does it meet the expectations I have for quality. So I could not do business anywhere and not create any extra jobs by graphic designers or auxiliary products, or I can print overseas where I can afford to make a product that is of substantial quality, and then in turn feed the economy quite substantially with the hotels that I stay at for conventions, with the things that I buy, the office that I rent to warehouse my games. Tons of money gets plugged into my country because of what I do. I wrote a substantial blog post about it, actually.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I get ripped off in China anyway. You're going to get ripped off in China at some point, even faster. Because don't say no. I don't even publish in China, and I get ripped off. Alibaba right now and buy a container of Catan.
Actually, it's true.
I have a phenomenal manufacturer, and I would be very surprised if that ever happened. Panda Games is amazing, and I can't.
Panda's not the one that's going to rip you off.
I don't do business with anybody but Panda.
I don't do business with anybody in China, and they still rip me off. That's the point.
I'm going to butt in here.
I do.
It's gonna come to blows. Larry and I.
No, it's not gonna come to blows.
You can do it.
I was gonna say, blame China. As a Chinese person here, we can all blame China. There you go.
I'm very clear in my opinion. Why give your money to communists who don't like you?
I love them. I love Panda.
I'll actually pipe in here. I'll put it in here and say I'm actually appreciative. I'm appreciative of the Panda support because there's a leg here in Canada, some offices here in Canada, so we like your support of Panda as well for the Canadian economy. But I actually have a follow-up question for Patrick. Patrick, talking about things like what the publisher offers and all the work they're doing for distribution and graphic design, all those kind of things. I mean, what is the contract like for a designer when it comes to the rights or privileges they have working with you as the publisher? Do they have say on some of the art? Do they get any creative control? What is that like working, designer, publisher, and then you're inviting other people into the process once you've signed the game?
Sure. I always like to let people know the contract exists to protect them just as much as it does to protect me. Before I became a publisher, I was actually applying for law school and contract law, so that kind of helps out a bit. I have a insurance legal background, and that helped a lot with contracts. But I always let them know, it's going to help them as much as it's going to help me, and everything's going to be, spelled out as clear as possible. So as far as design input and art input, as an independent publisher, I let my designers know that this is a collaborative process, and that I try with every single designer. I let them know that they can be involved as much as they want to, that I want to share. Is that a thing of weed? Awesome! Holy crap, Larry! We could have been hanging out this whole time, buddy! What happened? That is awesome. Okay, sorry. I'll get back on topic here. Larry, we need to hang out at our next show. So, anyways, wow. Anybody viewing?
No matter what, Larry just won. He just won.
Larry's winning at life.
That was a mic drop. That was pretty much a mic drop. So, okay, back on point. all the risk financially is on me as the publisher. So I have my contract worded in such a way where at the end of the day, it's my decision on art. At the end of the day, it's my decision on development. And that's simply because I'm bearing the lion's share of the financial risk. My time, my resources, my money spent on marketing, on promotional materials, everything like that is my burden and my responsibility. So at the end of the day, if I feel a mechanic doesn't work, contractually, I spell out what the development process looks like. But again, it's most important to communicate is that my contracts are extremely clear on what a designer can expect to go through. And I always like when I can sit down face to face with that designer and go through the contract line by line, which doesn't take long. I've got a 4-page contract, and go through that with them to basically let them know that, hey, this exists to protect you just as much as it does me.
Okay.
Wow.
So I wanna kind of help in wrapping up here by asking our kind of designer finishing question in a publisher environment. So the one tip, Larry, that a new designer can hang his hat on to come to you with his baby, his little board game, and have a shot at getting published. What's your number one tip for a new designer, Larry?
Just be prepared and be confident. I mean, really, it's just like going on any other interview or presenting any other kind of resume for a job or whatever. If you got to sit there and practice in a mirror on what you're going to, the publisher's going to give you 15 minutes or 10 minutes or whatever they're going to give you. All right, be prepared. All right, don't be nervous. I mean, it's hard, especially first-time guys. Okay, but just be prepared and be confident. Show your enthusiasm, but don't go overboard. I mean, just relax. Just relax.
That's awesome.
Larry, you got a brownie for me, buddy?
No, that was my department.
Oh, that's awesome. All right.
No, in all honesty, I mean, really, it's all about how you present yourself, just like anything else. You're going to go for a job interview at some company or something. You're going to try and present yourself in the manner that you think that company wants you to be. Okay? You're going to be polite. All right? You're going to show your resume, or you're going to show your prototype, or you're going to show your sell sheet, whatever it might be.
Cash.
Huh? Or the cash? No, and going back to that thing, the manufacturer who's going to spend all the money, not just the lion's share, but all the money, should have, the author can be part of the process for art and all this other stuff. Rules changes, absolutely. But other than that, we're the ones spending the money. You just sit back and take a check, at some point.
That's the hope, right?
Take your check.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Patrick, just wanted to send that question your way as well. New designer, first time at a convention, what's the one piece of advice you give them?
If they're a first-time designer, go experience the culture. Go immerse yourself in it and hang out and see everything. If it's your first time there, it's really, I don't know that I would recommend, pitching your first time out. I'm not saying it's a bad idea, but it's a lot more beneficial if you can go and experience that culture, and if you can, take some meetings with publishers. I can't remember who did this, but I thought I heard about a designer that went to Gencon and made meetings with a bunch of publishers and just flat out said, look, I only want 10 minutes of your time, and I just want to pick your brain as to how is it best to pitch specifically to you. Like, they went and interviewed, and I thought that was really thoughtful and showed a lot of respect and maturity as far as they wanted to take it very seriously, and I really respect that. I think that that was a great idea, but mostly just know who you're talking to, and kind of be familiar with what they do. And if you don't know, shoot an email. I got an email from a designer that says, hey, I'd love to pitch you a game. I've got a couple in the works. What are you looking for? So they wanted to make their time with me efficient, and I really respected that. I think it all just comes down to respect, and I'm much more apt to listen and hear someone out that shows up prepared and respectful, and and moves on from there.
Great advice. Great advice. Well, thank you both, Larry and Patrick, for coming on the show, sharing some wisdom, sharing some stories. I've really appreciated it.
Sharon,
what's that?
Nothing.
Oh, I hope people have a great evening, relaxing, thinking about board games. We have a fantastic episode next week with Gil Hova and a surprise guest. We'll be talking about Euro game design. Also want to recommend people to check out our after show where we'll be talking about this show. It'll be posted on Friday, and you can find us online. You can find us. Our website is meeplesyrupshow.com. You can find us on YouTube and you can find us on Twitter at Meeple Syrup. Thanks so much. Keep designing great games. Hopefully we'll have you on the show soon.